The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, I kindly ask all council members to please put away cell phones. If you need to conduct personal business during the meeting, please make a motion for a recess. For those participating by phone, please ensure your phone is muted unless you are speaking. Also, when speaking, please remember to state your name for the benefit of those streaming the meeting. As a reminder to all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located at the back of the council chambers above the clock. Our meetings are governed by Robert's Rules of Order in accordance with Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090. In order to maintain an orderly and respectful discussion, I respectfully request the council to observe the following guidelines. Please seek recognition before speaking. No member may speak more than twice on the same motion without an affirmative vote to suspend the rules. No member may speak a second time on a matter until all others who wish to speak have had an opportunity to do so. These rules are in place to ensure that everyone's right to speak is respected and to prevent any one voice from dominating the discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle. Here. Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Vlock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubio.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. All council members are with us in chambers, and I did want to note for the record, our City Attorney Holly Wells is participating telephonically this evening.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Graham, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Before changes are discussed, are there conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, are there changes to the agenda?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move the entirety of 8.3, so 8.3.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, and 0.7 to new business, and would like to discuss them as a whole with Committee of the Whole when we get there as well.
Okay. I would like to move 6.6, our lobbyist report, up to right before special orders of the day. Are there objections?
Madam Mayor. Prior to the meeting, I passed out Matsu Borough Information Memorandum IM 25-023. I would like to have a Committee of the Whole discussion regarding that, and we could put it where the clerk thinks it's appropriate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll add that to new business. Do you guys want to deal with that before or after the airport property resolutions? Doesn't matter to me.
It don't matter.
I'd prefer it before. I think
Before.
that conversation's shorter than the one we're going to have about the airport.
Okay. Attorney Wells, I'm going to ask, the deputy clerk is going to email you the documents just so you have them, okay?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there objections to the motion to approve the agenda as amended? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. Now we are at 6.6, the lobbyist report. This is Christopher Knauss with
Thanks, Mayor. Nice to see everybody. The mayor had asked, session, as folks know, starts next Tuesday in Juneau. It's constitutionally a 90-day statutory session, but, a statutory 90-day session, but a constitutional 121-day session. So we start beginning mid-January through, looks like probably around May 21st if everything goes accordingly this year. But what I wanted to do was, before I head down, I spend the work weeks in Juneau for about that 5 months a year, and happy to call in or whatnot throughout the session from time to time. But I want to talk about kind of the three big issues as we face another large turnover in legislative makeup, and a little bit of reality to the fact that we have a deficit. The governor introduced his budget on December 15, which outlined about a $3 billion deficit based on his permanent fund dividend being a full statutory dividend. But if you look at from a historical perspective, that really, with a what they call a percent of market value of a 75-25 payout, 5% of the fund, 75% goes to state government, 25% goes to PFDs, you're looking at about a $285 million deficit if you basically maintain spending from last year. That said, there's always increments in whether that be education, whether that be pensions, primarily healthcare, Medicaid. Those are all the things that we're gonna really get down into the dirty on. But I do think it's gonna be a big budgetary year. I think there's a lot of unknowns in terms of the price of oil, particularly as the Trump administration comes in. If there's a large increment in terms of production, that could drive the price actually down, which, as folks know, from my standpoint, for about every dollar there is in a change of barrel of oil is about $100 million annually to the state. So it just kind of puts things into perspective. But what I want to do is just tell you that as we enter this legislative session, this is the first time at this point we haven't had anybody from the Mat-Su Valley in the legislative majorities in probably well over a decade. So I think that the relationship with the administration is going to be that much more important. And what I will tell you is the way the budgetary system works is that if they have to spend over their available revenues, they have to tap into an account called the Constitutional Budget Reserve. That Constitutional Budget Reserve is about $2 billion right now. And if they access that CBR, that requires a 3/4 vote of the legislature. So 15 out of 20 votes in the Senate, 30 votes out of 40 in the House. And so that is probably, from a minority standpoint, that is probably your best play in order to get deliverables in terms of projects that aren't in the majority. And so a lot of these things won't happen until later in the session. The governor will also promote his budgetary amendments in the first 30 days of the session, so we're also working some of those angles. But in light of the budget and where things are at, and that just kind of putters along throughout session, I think it's important for this group to know that, we obviously have other clients. We have oil and gas clients, and in the first week of session, Senator Giesel, who's the incoming chair of the Senate Resources Committee, is doing a hearing on Cook Inlet gas. And it's really hasn't been hit in the press, but I'll tell you that the word is out is that Hillcorp is not able to meet some of their contractual obligations to the utilities, particularly NSTAR, in this coming season in terms of gas supply. And so you're going to see a large discussion, which isn't a very political popular discussion, on importation of gas. And you've seen a multitude of RCA filings and discussions in the paper on gas storage, on importation, and really you're in a position now where time is more or less run out, and so there's a very high probability that these utilities are going to have to import gas in the next 12 to 24 months. So I think that's going to really consume the first few days of session, and then I think you're going to see other priorities that may not be in this delegation's priorities, but priorities that were important to those in the majority of this cycle, which is pension reform, particularly for public safety and teachers, looking at a defined benefit system again. Also, I think you'll see a large discussion in and around education. The governor has an omnibus education bill that he'll be dropping a lot of charter school component correspondence pieces to it. I think that's going to have to find a medium again with a lot of the brick and mortar schools, the NEA and others, in order to get where they need to go. It looks like the governor, again, has a veto-proof legislature. It's going to be close, but it looks that way. But I do think that education will take a large piece of the session. I think there'll be discussions in and around Alaska's fisheries. I think there's a lot of issues in terms of bycatch and what the state can actually make impact on, and where they can actually direct some of those dollars. And I think, you know, the last piece I would say that I think is going to be a larger issue is just, you know, where a lot of these federal dollars that were either committed to the state, available to the state, whether those are broadband funds, transportation funds, how is that all going to work with the federal DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency? Will there be clawbacks to those dollars? How are things going to change? You know, and from a state perspective, you look at this, and you look at a lot of our federal economy, it's about 40% federal, and our state economy is about 40% federal. And you look at things like bypass mail, U.S. Postal Service, all of these things that are in a little bit of the line of sight are something that the state's going to have to really work with our delegation on what makes sense and how that will actually impact not only the state government down to the local governments. And so the governor's in Dubai on an energy trip right now. I know he's headed to the inaugural events. I think that we're going to see a lot of action from particularly Department of Interior over the first 15 days of the new administration, and hopefully overturning the 66 administrative executive orders in place. So maybe we'll see more development, more actionable activity here. So I think there's a lot of people that are looking forward to that. But I will tell you that Juneau is going to be slow moving. The House right now stands at 21-19. I'm not sure that 19 or the 21 is necessarily how it's going to be after the 22nd of January. And the Senate is 14-6. And the Republicans in the Senate are an actual minority this cycle, so they're actually given seats on committees, which in the last couple of years they haven't been. So I think that's good, particularly for the Matsu Valley delegation. So happy to answer any questions from the council and where things stand in terms of this legislative session, what to look for.
Anybody got questions? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Kris. So from a city council standpoint, where do you think our efforts are going to be best focused when we communicate with our legislators?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I appreciate it. I think a couple things. One, from an operating standpoint, we want to make sure that those programs, particularly public safety, for the MATCOM, for, you know, you have money in the budget for a new trooper station in Talkeetna. Those things are moving forward because that takes some ease off of the city. The other piece I would say we need to watch very closely is the pension reform, because, you know, you could have a very quick amendment where all of a sudden the purpose of the pension, which has the votes right now to pass in the legislature, could put more onus on those local governments and for contribution. And so that's something from a municipal league standpoint we need to be mindful of in order to balance the budget, because there's a big unknown of what that's actually going to cost if the state's picking up those pieces. The other thing I would tell you is from a funding standpoint, I think there's a couple avenues that at least I'm looking at. I'm looking at the supplemental from FY25 to see what that surplus is and to see if there's ways to maneuver there. There's discussion that the governor's working on about a $200 million bond package, general obligation bond this session, and if that moves forward, that would be on the 26th ballot. And some of, you know, when you're putting together a bond package, they may say 200 million, but usually they end up being about 500 million at the end of the day to get statewide support. And so I think that a bond package looks more doable this year than it has. And then I think from our standpoint as a city, I think just making sure that we're protected in these things. We might have to play a little defense on some of the legislation that's moving forward. And a lot of that is because we don't necessarily have those majority members in place right now to have a stopgap. And that's, I don't want to say it's problematic, but I think it's just a change in the times. I mean, this is the first time we've seen the Matsu Valley in a lot of ways very aligned in terms of their delegation. And they actually, it's been a while. So hopefully we're rowing all in the same direction this year.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kris.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you coming from Anchorage in
You
this
bet.
icky weather.
See you in June.
Yes. Be careful going in. Okay, we are on to special orders of the day. Recognizing outstanding athletes from Wasilla High School. Presentation of certificates to the state champion girls varsity volleyball team, state champion cross-country runner, and a state champion diver. It's an honor to recognize the remarkable accomplishments of our Wasilla High School coaches and athletes. You have brought immense pride and inspiration to our community with your extraordinary achievements. First, let us celebrate the Wasilla High School girls varsity volleyball team for winning the OSSA Class 4A State Volleyball Championship. Your teamwork, determination, and resilience on and off the court have set a shining example of excellence for all of us. Next, I would like to recognize an incredible milestone, and please forgive me if I butcher your name. An incredible milestone by Haley Jacoby, who made history as the first ever Wasilla cross-country runner to win an individual girls state championship. Your passion for running has carved your name into Wasilla's legacy and inspired countless young athletes to dream big and strive for greatness. And finally, congratulations to Travis Horton, who achieved greatness in diving by winning the OSSA State Championship. You have shown us all what it means to pursue your goals with unrelenting determination. At this time, I would like to transition to the Wasilla High School coaches, who will recognize their athletes by calling their names to accept the City of Wasilla's certificate and pins honoring their accomplishments. Congratulations to all. If the coaches would come forward, please. Coach Katie Oxspring. Yes. And Coach Mike Gamble.
Allie Devine. Leah Caldwell. Kennedy Shelton.
Can you guys pause and turn? Pause.
Allison Brewer. Thank you. Crystal Shelton. Kai Shackle. Hayden. Caitlin. I'm on Menard's not here. Sorry.
Congratulations to all of you. Next, we have Coach Wendy.
So much. Can we call up Travis Thornton, please?
And Coach Leslie.
And Haley, come on up.
Again, congratulations to all of you. We are so proud of all of you students in Wasilla High School and everything that you accomplish. Okay, and so now the mayoral proclamation recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. City of Wasilla's proclamation recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Whereas the City of Wasilla honors the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a leader who dedicated his life to advancing equality, justice, and peace for all people. And whereas Dr. King's leadership during the Civil Rights Movement led to monumental achievements, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which transformed our nation by expanding rights and opportunities for millions. And whereas Dr. King encouraged Americans to come together, regardless of age, race, or creed, to strengthen their communities, alleviate poverty, and value the dignity and respect inherent in all people. And whereas Martin Luther King Jr. Day serves as a reminder of the power of nonviolence, compassion, and courage in the face of adversity, and calls us to continue striving for justice and dignity for all individuals. And whereas the City of Wasilla is committed to fostering a community where every resident is valued, treated with respect, and empowered to contribute to the greater good. Now therefore I, Glenda D. Ledford, Mayor of the City of Wasilla, do hereby proclaim January 20th, 2025 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the City of Wasilla, and encourage all Alaskans to honor Dr. King's legacy by engaging in acts of kindness, service, and solidarity that strengthen our community and promote equality for all. Okay. There ain't nobody here. If you students would like to leave or stay, whichever one, it's okay. You're welcome. Okay, the mayoral proclamation recognizing National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. City of Wasilla proclamation recognizing National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Whereas the safety and security of the residents, businesses, and visitors in the City of Wasilla are paramount to maintaining the vibrant and welcoming community we cherish. And whereas law enforcement dedicate their lives to protecting and serving the public, often placing themselves in harm's way to ensure the safety of others. And whereas the officers of the Wasilla Police Department and other law enforcement agencies work tirelessly to uphold the rule of law, preserve peace, and foster trust within our community. And whereas National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, observed annually on January 9th, provides an opportunity for citizens to express their gratitude and support for the courage, commitment, and sacrifices of law enforcement officers. And whereas it is fitting and proper to honor the service and dedication of these men and women who uphold justice and protect the freedoms we hold dear. Now therefore, I, Glenda D. Ledford, Mayor of the City of Wasilla, do hereby recognize January the 9th, 2025 as National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day in the City of Wasilla and encourage all residents, businesses, and community organizations to take time on this day to show their support for law enforcement officers through acts of kindness, words of encouragement, and public acknowledgement of their invaluable service. And it is my honor to present this to our chief, Bill Rapson. We are now at Commission and Agencies Report. Wasilla High School Student Representative.
Hi, I'm Allie Devine from Wasilla High. I'm the student body president. So since the last time I came and talked, we had 2 dramas and drama events. One was Trip to the Moon, performed by our drama class, and then the other was a musical by our choir teacher it was a Clue. And then Wrestling State was during December. We took 4th in state and had 3 state champions, and the girls won the Sportsmanship Award. The basketball season started in December with the Doc Larson Roundball Classic, which was a great turnout, and then both girls and boys basketball is doing really well. Our girls are 1st in the state right now. Coming up is our Wasilla High School 40th annual fundraiser. The outdoor show is this Saturday and Sunday, and doors will open at 10 a.m. And then in February 13th, 14th, and 15th, Wasilla High School, in partnership with the City of Wasilla and the Menard Sports Center, is hosting the 18th Division I State Hockey Tournament at the Menard. Thank you to the City of Wasilla over the past 18 years for working together in order to host this state tournament for Wasilla. In Wasilla, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have questions? Mr. Graham?
The outdoor show that's going to be at the Wasilla High School gym this year, or?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Airport Advisory Commission.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Eric Shaw, Public Works Director. So on December 16th, we had our monthly AAC meeting. The main point of order was a new business. It was a airport master plan presentation by our contractors and consultants, HDL, and outlining the proposed alternative for expansion to the airport. All of those documents have been uploaded to the project website, which you can reach through our city website or just by searching Wasilla Airport Master Plan. And then the other thing I'd like to let the council know is that we're going to have a public meeting for anyone involved, interested, neighbors, and that's going to be hosted at the Menard Center, as past meetings have been. I'm going to pull up the flyer really quick, just to make sure the date's right. So that will be Tuesday, February 11th, from 5:30 to 7:30. So we'll be having those updated drawings. We'll be gathering public comment, feedback. We'd love to see the council there if you'd like to attend. And then the day after that, we will be presenting that same information to the Meadow Lakes Community Council, which is our neighbors to the west of the airport within the borough. So hope to see you there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. We will now hear from the city planner on the Planning Commission. Cindy.
Hello, Council. This is Cindy Wellman. I'm City Planner, City of Wasilla. And since I was last here, we actually had our meeting on the 10th, which I reported on, but I thought I'd mention a few things that are coming up. We have tomorrow night a public hearing, or excuse me, we have a public meeting for the commission, and we are going to be finishing up Title 16, so we'll be able to say that we're finished as well. We'll also be discussing setting a meeting date for some very intensive training that's going to be coming, that's going to be our city attorney's going to be conducting, and it's going to cover, it's a pretty long meeting. We anticipate at least 4 to 5 hours because it's going to have both the quasi-judicial role that the Planning Commission holds as well as the advisory portion of their role. And I don't have that date exactly. We'll be discussing that tomorrow night. But also coming up, we're hoping to have this on the meeting on the 28th. With the recent changes under Title II that the City Council passed, we are going to sit down with our commission to go over those changes and plan out over the year what that's going to look like, not just this year, but future years. For example, where we discuss a portion of the comp plan or a portion of the streets plan. We'll be looking at that and planning it out and just discussing the changes, if any. So let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, we just had our kickoff for the comp plan, and they're going to be, Dow Engineering is who's going to be running that. And I've invited them to come to our 28th meeting for the commission. And I also sent an email today asking if it's possible for them to come and do a presentation to the council as well. And I did mention this to the city clerk, Jamie Newman, and if that does happen, we'll be reaching out, or we'll be coordinating that so they can come do the presentation for you as well. And that is a once every 10-year comp plan, so we're excited because last one was done in 2011. And then finally, we did have our conditional use permit that was turned in. I mentioned this because it's a big one. South Central is going to be expanding, South Central Foundation, and that is down here on Connect Goose Bay Road. So big things with that. Thank you very much. Oh, any questions?
Nope. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
We will now hear from the Director of Recreational Services about the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Good evening, Scott Powell, Recreational Services Director. We had a Park and Rec Commission meeting January 8th. The minutes for that will be in the next packet since it was just Wednesday night. We did have a glitch on the recording, so we apologize for that, but we'll have a good set of minutes for you to kind of understand what occurred. Jess Griffith, the Parks and Buildings Supervisor, did report a successful tree lighting ceremony in Idita Park, including all the lights and all the different fun lighting stuff that they had set up. I guess they had over 300 people in attendance. New Year's Eve fireworks show, we went with a new vendor this year, and I think that definitely took up the show a level or two. Went off wonderful. Guerrilla Fireworks donated $10,000 worth of fireworks also, so a big thank you for them. And we did a live broadcast and a countdown with 95.5 The Pass, which was kind of fun. We had live on their radio station, but also a DJ in the park playing all the music and having fun. We did the countdown off of that, and so that went really well. And let's see, we had in the park this year, normally, depending on weather, I may have 100, 150 people literally out in the park where everyone else is in the neighborhoods and such. And we had over 600 people in the park outside enjoying the show. So that was actually really, really cool. And then Parks and Trails Master Plan, we discussed, it's a 2011 plan, how we're gonna go forward to update that so we can kind of get in sync with the budget cycle. And the goals and initiatives that we've kind of brought forward here recently. And so that will be our biggest kind of project right now to get that up to date and in sync with the budget cycle. And that was our meeting.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question real quick?
One.
I just want to say fireworks are amazing. I was there attending. I was curious to see if we're going to be able to get a copy of the drone footage, because I saw somebody flying a drone, it looked like, around the fireworks there.
Yeah, the actual pyrotechnic company had one up flying on the backside, kind of the mall side, and he was gonna get me some clips. The other one, I don't know who had that one, so.
I saw the one that had the little green dot on it, and I remember watching it take off right before they started.
And
zipping around, so.
Eric mentioned the gentleman that had the airplane has some video that we're gonna try to get. So if you saw the airplane that was buzzing around, we're gonna try to see if we can get some from that, because pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the administration has started something new. You will have a director report once a month. And so the first one is finance. Cassie.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor. This is just a kind of a brief update what's happening in the finance department. As you know, we kind of have a multitude of divisions within the finance department. We range from payroll to sales tax to utility billing to many other parts of it. We're currently in for the FY24 audit for our comprehensive financial report. We are currently in our draft status right now with our final review. And we're currently working on the management discussion and analysis. That report is currently scheduled for presentation, and the report will be due at the February 10th regular meeting with our auditors BDO. Our FY26 budget development, as you know, we finished up our FY26 goals and initiatives. They will be presented at the January 27th meeting for approval. With that, it begins the process of our budget of all the departments. So we will begin, the personnel budget is currently being developed. It's pending release of the December CPI, which is expected actually on Wednesday of this week, on January 15th. Once we have that information, we will be able to begin the 3-year average of our CPI, which is how we base our COLA increases for our staff. In regards to payroll, we are currently working on W-2s, and also we are working on 1099s with our accounts payable department. They're currently under review. They'll be issued by our January 31st deadline. We're hoping to have our W-2s out with the final payroll of January, which is January 24th. We are currently going through the process of probably make a lot of people happy for staff. We are finally going to have our direct deposit pay stubs emailed to staff, starting beginning on February 7th. So anybody who is enrolled in direct deposit, we will send direct deposit pay stubs to staff at their staff email that we currently have on file. It's been a work in process, but we're getting through it, so it's a good thing. We are going to begin WPDA negotiations. That is going to be scheduled to begin in February. We will have a resolution coming forward with regards to the collective bargaining agreement. This is submitted for the council and public input, which will be on the January 27th meeting also, as per the Wasilla Municipal Code and Title III. As planning kind of has stated, we also are in sales tax mode, so we are in current license renewal world, and we are heavily, got quite a few of them going on right now. We are processing roughly about 150 licenses a day, but they continue to have, we have about 700 in the approval chain at the moment. In regards to the grants, we are currently managing roughly 47 active grants currently right now. We have 6 additional grants that are currently in either the application stage or they are in pre-award or pending award documents that we haven't received yet. All of our airport, due to the expansion at Apron E, all tie downs are currently in agreement, I guess is the correct word. We have no vacancies on there, and we have a huge, long list of people who would love to have our tie downs right now. Coming up this spring, our purchasing department is currently having 10 RFPs are currently on schedule for RFPs this spring, and then there's more to come based on construction season coming up that we will be posting out here probably in March and April. And Tyler Technologies implementation status update. So this week, Tyler Technologies is building our software as a service platform. It is, once it's completed, we will have database access, which means we can start implementation, which means we can begin the process of conversion into our database with all of our information. This week, myself and the controller, Jackie Pritt, are actually going to be in some planning meetings on Tuesdays and Thursday for about 3 to 4 hours each. These are going to be with the project manager scheduling some planning events, talking about the chart of accounts and different information for in regards to once we get access into the system. And then we will begin the conversion and starting our test environment. The last thing I have is we are currently actively recruiting in the finance department for another staff accountant. This is to support with that increasing number of grants that we currently are having, and then also with the ERP implementation, it'll allow us to have some accounting different functions that are happening that are either under myself or under the controller that we can push off into somebody else while we can concentrate on the ERP implementation. That position was included in the FY25 budget, and so it was been vacant since July, and so we are currently actively recruiting it, and we will have that posted out, or it's been posted out for, it'll be out for a couple weeks. So, questions?
Mr. Graham?
Thanks. I have a couple questions, so I'll just go through them, and then if you need me to repeat any of them, that would be fine. I appreciate your report on staffing there, but I know a month or two ago you said you were short by a couple of people. If you could update us on what the staffing is, you know, I mean, how many vacancies do we currently have in your department? Another thing I'd like to know is where our sales tax numbers are for the numbers that you have so far for this year versus last year, and this year versus budget, you know, our projected sales tax. And the last thing would be if you have a guesstimate of what the CPI might be for this coming year. Thank you.
Through the mayor, Councilman Graham, currently we only have one vacancy. We don't have any other staff, so there are currently 12 positions within the finance department, and we only have that one vacancy, and it's been vacant since the beginning of the year. We would love to have more staffing within our department. We currently we don't have the room, for one. We don't have the space probably for anybody to be added, but we also have a lot of training in different parts that we're working on. And so in order to continue to concentrate on our Tyler ERP implementation, we have chosen to continue on with what we're currently having. With regards to the revenue on sales tax, we are currently on projection with regards to sales tax as it was adopted in the FY25 budget. We will have an update actually for council. It'll be coming through on an IM at the January 27th meeting for the normal quarterly update, and I can have more accurate figures for you at that time. In regards to CPI, currently right now I probably have an estimate of anywhere between 3.7 to 4.2%, but that's just an estimate as it with the 3-year average. It was 2.5% for the first half of the year, and so we take the first half and the last half and we average that out in regards to how we do our CPI 3-year average for our staff in regards to that. So we will have that information here in a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Could you just repeat the date for when we're gonna have access to the new database you said?
It will be available Friday.
Friday. Oh,
Friday is when we're supposed to get access, so they're, building it currently right now. And so we're gonna have a meeting on Friday that will allow us to have access in, and then that's when we can begin conversions and things of that nature.
wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cassie. Okay, we are now at public hearing. There is one ordinance scheduled for public hearing. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 25-01 by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by accepting and appropriating $19,109.84 from Museums Alaska Incorporated and the Rasmussen Foundation Collections Management Fund for the Caring for Family Treasures Wasilla Museum Training and Community Outreach Project.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 25-01 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Seeing no one, I will close public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 25-01?
So moved by Councilman Johnson.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Vlock to adopt ordinance serial number 25-01. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
could we just get a little bit more of an in-depth staff summary around this?
Bethany, if you would, please.
Bethany Buckingham Follett, Curator, Wasilla Museum. I guess, so this is a grant that the museum aide and myself applied for through Museums Alaska. Their granting cycle is actually changing to where they're only giving once a year. They used to do twice a year, so these funds are becoming very limited. So for us to get this is very exciting. This program is going to care for 8 material pieces, so basically clothing is what we're looking at. There were pieces selected. We received a grant earlier for a conservator to come in and look at our collections, look at the status of them, and pick out some of the most in need. And those are the ones that are in this grant. She helped us craft this grant, and what will happen is that she will come in, she will help with the restoration of those pieces, fixing, shattered silk, those kind of things. She's teaching staff as she's fixing them, so we will obtain that information. What that then allows us is that we don't have to pay a conservator every time something happens with our material collections. We actually will have that ability to fix it ourselves and then save those dollars, save those money for those really horrible pieces that everything, basically all of our collections are, we do the best we can. They all have inherent vice, which basically means at some point they will deteriorate, which means that we need extra care. So the daily care that we do doesn't help. What we're also doing with this is as soon as we have the training, we have the pieces, we're putting them on display, and then we will end up doing an outreach program. So we will invite the community to come in and learn how to care for their collections themselves. This also will allow private individuals to maintain their local and family history, but then when they do decide to donate it to the museum, they will be in better care than when we receive them. So a lot of people have things out on display in the sun, light is insidious. Those are very hard to fix. So if we can prevent that from happening before it comes to our museum, we can have things a lot longer.
Okay.
I don't know if that was in-depth or too much, not enough.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Bethany.
thank you, ma'am.
Is there further discussion?
Bethany?
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So there's 2 parts to this, actually 3 parts to this. There's 6 primary garments and then 8 secondary garments, and then there's some supplies.
Yes.
Are the supplies in the grant specifically only for those 14 garments, or are they
No.
supplies that will be used?
Those supplies can be used for a multitude of pieces. So what we're actually going to be learning is silk, cotton, gut skin, hide, fur, and that is not just in garments, but those are used in other items that we have, other objects in our collection. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany. Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. We are now on to persons to be heard. Thank you. And there is none, so we will close persons to be heard, and we are now on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for approval under the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 3 sets of meeting minutes, regular meeting minutes, November 25th, December 3rd, special meeting minutes, December 4th, special meeting minutes, 2024. We have 1 introduction, recommended public hearing date of January 27th, 2025. That's ordinance serial number 2502, amending Wasilla Municipal Code, Chapter 355, Salary Administration Plan, to grant the City Council authority to create, retitle, or transfer positions. And lastly, on our consent agenda, we have the AM number 2501, contract award to Anchorage Tank in the amount of $6,965 for a 5,000 gallon fuel tank for the Wasilla Police Department.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Madam Mayor, I move the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Graham to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there objection to the motion?
Madam Mayor, I do have a question for the police chief regarding the fuel tank, if I may, on AM 2501. So while you're walking, Chief, I'll go ahead and go through this real quick, because this will only take a second. We're, appropriating $47,000 for the tank, but I didn't see anywhere in here about any sort of distribution system or anything like that. Do we know what the total cost of that is going to be? And 2 other questions. How much fuel do we plan to keep in the tank, even though it's 5,000 gallons? Or is there some sort of strategic level that we're shooting for? And last thing, are we gonna need to do some additional CIP to provide additional security for the tank, put additional fencing or gating or anything like that? So,
for your first question, that was gonna be the same pump setup as that we have over at City Yard right now, which I don't know what the pump name is or who we went with, the vendor, or any of that, but it's gonna be identical to that with, I think, the same app, correct?
which would be about how much money?
5,000.
Okay.
The second one is that I'm average, kind of a little bit more during the winter months. I'm averaging about 3,000 gallons a month. With that, I'm also getting the fuel at a state contract pricing, which is considerably a lot cheaper. The idea is, I think currently right now we're refilling at 2,500 gallons roughly. That would be the same token for having enough to for emergency planning. If there was a disaster to happen, I have enough fuel in the reserves to fuel the patrol cars and then some for a backup if needed. And then third, it was we have a part of the CIP is to have perimeter fencing around that around the PD, and that tank would be inside that perimeter fencing, so we don't have to worry about any kind of security issues with people driving or unauthorized people back in that area.
Great, thank you. Madam Mayor, I have no objection.
Thank you. Does anybody else have objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. We are now on to, there's no unfinished business, and we are now on to new business. Madam Clerk.
Okay. And Madam Attorney, this is the new business item that we've added to our agenda this evening for discussion but no action. And that would be discussion, the title would be discussion on Matanuska-Susitna Borough Ordinance Serial Number 2511, amending MSB 212 related to assembly office holding vacancies and meetings. With that is Borough IM number 25023. This was requested by Councilmember Graham, and the council does all have copies of the ordinance in IM.
Mr. Graham.
Madam Mayor, I move to go into committee of the whole for discussion of Borough IM 25023. Committee of the whole would include the city council, the mayor, and the attorney.
Is there a second to the motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to enter into the committee of the whole. Is there objection? Hearing none, we are in committee of the whole at 6:54. Mr. Graham.
Madam Mayor, I asked for this to be added at the last minute here because this is something that was discussed at last Tuesday's Borough Assembly meeting. Essentially, the IM says that the borough is considering changing their policy on if an assembly member that represents a particular district. So for us, if a person representing the district that includes the city of Wasilla moved outside that district, they would be allowed to continue to be the representative for that district even though they were no longer a resident until the end of their elected term. Currently, the borough says they can maintain, or according to this, and I'm not familiar with borough code, but according to this, currently they can maintain their representation until the next regular election or until a special election is held. So the borough is saying, well, we want to avoid the cost of a special election and have it go all the way out till the end of their term. So the borough has 4-year terms. So if you, for instance, if Mr. Crafton were elected to the borough assembly and then decided to life is better in Willow, so he moved out there, he would continue to represent the city of Wasilla until such time as the end of his regular term. What I would like the council to do is to direct the mayor to craft a letter stating strong unanimous opposition from the city council of the city of Wasilla to any change in the current policy for representation and people moving outside of the district they represent. Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Holly, did you need to weigh in on that about how we could do that without getting into a resolution process or anything like that?
No, I mean, I think in general, if council wants to adopt a resolution that states its collective concerns, I think that can be done. I would recommend that you use the whereas clauses if you do a resolution in that way, and that I work with the city clerk to make sure those whereas clauses make it clear that the city's aware of where its authority begins and ends, just so that we're not getting into the practice of adopting resolutions that are outside the scope of council's role. But I think that that can be done, and I think that, you know, that's certainly an option for council.
However, Madam Attorney, the Borough Assembly will meet next Tuesday, so we don't have time as a council to go through some sort of a formal presentation is really the reason I was asking. So can we legally or morally or whatever the question is, can we ask the mayor on fairly short notice to express our opposition to this without having to go through the notification process and you know, public hearing and so on and so forth?
So I would ask the city clerk. So Wasilla, you're very good at sticking to your agenda, and you do not use motion very. You use them very sparingly, and for what you would be asking, because the only way to get that level of approval would be via motion. So I would ask the clerk what her position is on motions, because honestly, it goes both ways, and it generally turns to Robert's Rules of Order. So I don't know if the clerk has a position.
Can we have just a brief at ease?
Yes. We are
Okay,
at ease
Holly.
at 6:58.
Can we come back to record?
We are back on the record at 6:59.
So, Madam Attorney, the thing I rely on is Wasilla Municipal Code 204110, if you want to pull that up. And that really talks about the clerk shall prepare the agenda for each meeting after consultation with the mayor. The agenda shall include any proposed ordinance, resolution, action memorandum, or information memorandum in which the mayor or one council member wishes to bring forward. A discussion item to include an agency report shall be placed on the agenda if requested in writing and signed by the mayor and two council members. Items not on the published agenda may not be discussed at the meeting unless approved by a majority vote of the council. So the council approved the discussion item through a majority vote.
Okay, and so, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, that was very helpful. I mean, I think the only other provision in your code that really addresses this is 208075. And but all that does is authorize council to take action by motion. So I think you have to read those two together. And if you find that, I mean, I guess I would ask, what's the procedure if they are going to make a motion, if council has approved that, to have the discussion item added to the agenda? Is it appropriate then to have a motion? Because while it certainly is appropriate for council to have a motion, I want to make that clear. I think the clerk and I are saying that that is fine. It's just a matter of when it's brought up, and the fact that it's not on the agenda for this evening, and so there wouldn't be no motion.
Molly, were you referring to 208075 forms of action?
Yes, exactly.
Well, so I don't want to get in the habit of doing this, but I suppose really a resolution is just a bunch of motions in one document, Holly? And so.
Well, I would, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know, is it motions in one document compiled? Just like a substitute is one big amendment? So the council may take action in the form of an ordinance, resolution, action memorandum, or a motion, subject to the provisions of state law or this code that require action to be taken in a particular form. So I think that speaks to form. The other part speaks to notice and balance.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, so I think that, but the provision you're relying on, Jamie, does allow for a motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, I guess that's what I would say is that council could move to express its concerns and disapproval of that change in residency or change in, or just of the ordinance in general, I guess, and then direct the city clerk or a specific council member to communicate that to the borough. I will warn, though, I mean, again, can we find a way to do it that is not expressly in violation of law? Yes. Is this an advised and a recommended practice, given how careful council is to follow their procedures? I would say no. But if it's important to council, then I don't see that we are violating a direct law.
I agree.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Sorry, this might be to Jamie and or Holly. So I'm looking at 2.08.070, and it says we can craft a resolution as a council without a public hearing. We're not required, the way I'm understanding it. It's an option to hold a public hearing. It's under B, Jamie, for resolutions. So again, it just depends on how we want to handle this, is what I'm understanding. Do we want to handle this where we just say, hey, Mayor, go down there and express our concerns as a city, or do we want to, as a council, have an official resolution that is handed to every single assembly member expressing our concerns? I mean, kind of what Holly says, we generally do try and follow our code to the T, and we like to have our public input. This is one, I mean, we are elected officials. Sometimes we have to make decisions on the fly, and this is one of those ones that might be a decision on the fly, in my thought. I'm not opposed to either option. I think the resolution holds a little bit more weight, though.
So for me, through the chair to the council, I don't think that deals with it, that section. I think really what it comes down to is how comfortable are we, which it's up to the council, that on our published agenda, we have no, that's really the crux of it. And so certainly through motion, the council is free to make a motion at any public meeting. So Holly will defer to the council on their wishes.
Yes, and just to clarify, so I think, Jamie, you and I are on the same here. I mean, I don't think the resolution is appropriate. I do think that would need to be in writing. And while I agree no public hearing would be necessary, still notice that a resolution form presented to council in accordance with how we draft our resolutions. It's just, you wouldn't need a hearing, but you'd still need to put the resolution in the packet and on the agenda. But I think a motion is doable under the law.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Holly, for that discussion there. So what I would ask the council to do when we exit committee of the whole is to direct the mayor to draft a letter from the administration expressing the city council's most adamant disapproval of any action related to IM 25023, meaning that we disagree with IM 2523 and we do not want to see any amendments to 2523. We want 2523 voted down in its entirety, so that the existing code remains, which says that if you move out of the district, then there's a special election to fill that seat. Thank you.
If I may, through the chair to the council. Councilmember Graham, would it be permissible when you're out of committee of the whole that I work with the attorney to draft that letter? And then we'll have Madam Mayor sign it?
Yep.
And within the letter, we'll capture,
No, that would be fine.
Okay.
I just want to
And
make
then-
sure that we say that we are opposed to
and-
the potential of not being represented on the borough assembly.
And really, when we look at ordinance 2511, and Madam Attorney, you have a copy, I think really the council is vehemently opposed to section 2 of the ordinance. So the focus will be on section 2. Is that correct?
Understood.
If I understand correctly. Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Might be a question to Mr. Graham here. What about the rest of it? I'm actually looking at it, and some of these parts actually aren't too bad, like the fails to qualify situation. I mean, it looks like that's a little bit of what I'd almost consider the housekeeping clarification. So I don't know if I'd say the entire thing. I think it's just that one section. I mean, for clarification purposes, I'm okay with that if we just want to keep it simple and short and say, hey, we just don't want this at all. If you want to bring it back and housekeep that type of stuff differently, that's fine. I just wanted to at least say, I mean, looking at it, there's a couple things in here that do actually make sense.
If I may, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So, when I look at this, I look at the bold underlined. When I look through Borough Ordinance Serial Number 25011, so those would be changes to the existing borough code, and I would like to see us be opposed to any changes in the code, which would only be the bold and underlined. That would be our objection. So essentially the code would remain the same. If they want to come back and do some housekeeping, the 5 days to 7 days sort of thing, that's fine. But we pretty much, it is in our best interest to see IM 2523 voted down, and any changes to 2511, serial ordinance, serial 2511 be voted down as well and brought back as a separate question.
That sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Need a motion?
Councilmember Graham, can I ask? I apologize, Mayor. Can I just get one more point of clarification?
Yes.
I think some of the added language is just reflective of what's already in Title 29 as far as the vacancy of the amendment. So Section 4 of 25-011. So when we read that, and I think I have not spent much time with this ordinance, so I think they're just cleaning it up. But to the extent we go through that, and it's just a restatement of something that was in their code before, or it's a statement of vacancy parameters that are in the Alaska statute, do you want to object to that too, or is that outside the scope, Councilmember Graham?
If I may, Madam Mayor. So, Holly, thank you. I think it's in the best interest of the city to just ask to have this entire thing voted down and to have the technical, the housekeeping things brought back on a separate ordinance. If we allow part of it to stand, then we're going to be allowing, we're going to say, well, we're in favor of amendments. And once you say you're in favor of the code being amended based on this initial document here, the intent of the document doesn't change. What is changing is kind of the minor amendments. So I think we're better off voting the whole thing down and asking them to bring back technical changes either through a separate ordinance or by allowing their clerk, Lonnie, to bring forward the technical changes as a matter of, basically Scribner's notes.
Understood. Thank you, Councilmember Graham.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I need a motion to exit committee of the whole.
Madam Mayor, I move to exit committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It has been, my brain just went. Didn't have far to go. Anyway.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council direct the clerk.
Mr. Graham, I need to get us out of committee of the whole first. Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to exit committee of the whole. Is there objection? Hearing none. Now, Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council direct the clerk, the city clerk, in cahoots with the city attorney, to draft a letter for the mayor's signature expressing our unanimous objection to Borough IM 2523 and Borough Ordinance serial 25011. The clerk and the mayor would have great leeway in drafting that letter.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Mr. Crafton. The motion has been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to direct the city clerk and city attorney to have a letter drafted by for the mayor's signature in objection to ordinance serial number 2511 and IM number 25-023. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, we're done with that.
Madam Mayor, could we take a 5-minute recess, please?
5-minute break. Make it 3.
I love cahoots. Make sure cahoots is in the
Back on the record is 7:15. Madam Clerk, under new business, please read the items that's under new business.
Bear with me, you guys, there's 7 items I'm gonna read. Resolution serial number 2505, authorizing transfer of funds within an accounting fund in the amount of $400,000 from the Airport Water Main Extension Fund to Land Acquisition Fund for the purpose of purchasing property related to runway extension and airport expansion. Resolution serial number 2502, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 528030B to acquire 1.43 acres of land identified as Borealis Ridge Subdivision, Block 4, Lot 3, located at 4681 West Ridgeline Drive in an amount not to exceed $90,000 plus closing costs for runway expansion and runway protection zone. Resolution serial number 2503, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 528030B to acquire 1.07 acres of land identified as Borealis Ridge Subdivision, Block 4, Lot 4, located at 4649 West Ridge Line Drive in an amount not to exceed $86,000 plus closing costs for runway expansion and runway protection zone. Resolution serial number 2504, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 528030B to acquire 1 acre of land identified as Borealis Ridge Subdivision, Block 4, Lot 8, located at 4517 West Ridge Line Drive in an amount not to exceed $141,200 plus closing costs for runway expansion and runway protection zone. Resolution serial number 2505, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 528030B to acquire 1 acre of land identified as Borealis Ridge Subdivision, Block 4, Lot 9, located at 4491 West Ridgeline Drive in an amount not to exceed $148,000 plus closing costs for runway expansion and runway protection zone. Resolution serial number 2506, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 528030B to acquire 1.03 acres of land identified as Borealis Ridge Subdivision, Block 4, Lot 10, at 4459 West Ridgeline Drive in an amount not to exceed $173,300 plus closing costs for runway expansion and runway protection zone. Lastly, resolution serial number 2505, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 528030B to acquire 1.03 acres of land identified as Borealis Ridge Subdivision, Block 4, Lot 11, at 4431 West Ridge Line Drive in an amount not to exceed $158,200 plus closing costs for 1 runway expansion and runway protection zone.
Mr. Graham.
I believe this is Mr. Crafton's.
Madam Mayor.
Sorry. Mr. Crafton.
You need a motion first, right? Madam Mayor, I move all of them?
Do you want to enter in committee of the whole
It's a
first?
committee of the
Yeah,
whole.
no, I thought
Yeah.
we needed the motion first and then we go committee of the whole.
Either way. You want
Madam
to
Mayor, I
adopt
move
a
that we enter committee of the whole to include the entire council and I believe our public works and our attorney
to discuss,
to discuss the items that the clerk read.
so that would be to discuss resolutions 2501, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, and 07.
Thank you.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Crafton. Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
Okay. The motion's been made by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to go into committee of the whole. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, we are in committee of the whole at 7:20. Mr. Crafton, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I have quite a few questions, but I personally think the best thing to do would probably ask Mr. Shaw to come up and give us a summary and a run through, and it probably is going to answer quite a few of our questions, but I see our deputy clerk here is trying to get something up for us.
Our computer has died of boredom. So as it kicks off, I'll get us started. I appreciate the council's flexibility in moving to the committee of the whole so we can discuss this all at once. They all are related. We don't normally try to purchase 6 properties at once. So So what you have, of course, are the resolutions about each individual purchase. We divided those up, of course, so that we have the record in the future. Makes sense that way. But what I've included with you tonight, there's handouts in the back for any attendees, and then I'll make sure that the clerks have this for the minutes, is a couple things. You have a spreadsheet that looks at 26 parcels, and then you have an accompanying map that also has those same 26 parcels that are outlined. So we can talk about parcel number 1, and we can see a green parcel number 1 in the map. The request tonight is the first batch of private property that we seek to acquire so that we have the runway safety zones that we need for the expansion of the runway. As you know, we're moving very quickly with our airport master plan, and we have several phases. The first short-term phase is the expansion of the runway to 5,100 feet, which is a major milestone for improving the size of the airplanes that can use our facilities. Right now, we seek to attract those operators. We have some operators that have relocated to our facility because of our forward planning and because we're moving on that master plan. And then the ultimate build out in the master plan is a 6,000 foot runway. And so what we've done is worked with HDL, our consultant, to figure out the geometry that's required to meet FAA design standards so that we can certify the runway and that we meet all of their requirements. And then it becomes a process of identifying those properties and then working with those landowners. If we jump to the spreadsheet, you'll notice that we are in different stages of appraisal and purchase negotiations. So we entered into a addendum with, or an amendment with HDL to help us purchase these properties, because the acquisition of property for an airport that has FAA supervision, FAA support, is very complicated. And it comes out of history with much larger airports, LAX, Denver, those places that grew over time and needed to get land around them. And so there is a very prescriptive process that we have to go through so that we remain within the good graces of FAA, so that in the future, they will fully support in whatever way they receive funding for those expansions. In the past, purchases for airport properties have been off of the flight line, if you will, not directly tied to the runway. You may recall in the early 2000s, the city bought about 79 acres that goes up Beacon Street. That purchase process was a more typical process where the landowner was willing and the funding was approved by the council and it was purchased. If we followed that process with these runway extension properties, the FAA would say, well, that's great, you got the property, but that doesn't meet our federal code of regulations. So that would have thrown some major wrenches in future funding support from FAA. So as we looked at the properties that were available on the southwest end of the runway, let me back up. I was talking about getting the support of HDL. So we gave them an amendment to the contract to help us in about August. And after that was finalized, I drove down let's see, what's the name of the street? Valley Ridge, or Ridge Line as the clerk read, and land was being cleared. And it had all been owned by one developer, and those parcels were obviously less desirable as the upper side of the property those upper properties had been developed in their homes already. But there had been some movement, my opinion is there had been some movement in the downward interest rates, and so builders jumped on those properties. So we started to see land clearing when it had just been vacant, and our goal had always been to directly deal with that one landowner that had multiple properties. And so that really changed the order in which properties we focused on, because they were going to build homes, they had started. And so the risk was that the city waited so long that now there's a house there that then has to be vacated because it's in the RPZ. So we reorganized from some other vacant lands that we had kind of put our priority into, and we moved to parcels 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, and 14, which are in front of you tonight. So we went through the appraisal process. We went through the cost allocations for the work that they had done. And so that's one of the reasons that you see some differences in the agreed upon prices with those owners, is because of the cost accounting for the work that they've done. One of the parcels actually has a foundation and a septic tank on it. And so, the developers were reluctant to hear that we needed to buy it for the airport when they were trying to build homes and sell them. And so we asked them if they could come in and work with us. And so that's why you see their response. They have funds tied up in this, and we've worked through agreements with them, and they've signed to the purchase agreements, and they're looking for receiving those funds and being able to have that liquidity to move on to their next projects. Just for your information on the map, just if you have questions on the different colors, the purple areas are what we call navigation easements. So like a navigation easement for a vessel, navigation has to do with agreements about limiting the height of development. So if we look at parcels 19 and 20 at the end of the runway, we will be looking to negotiate a navigation easement where they may not, they'll waive their right to put up a cell tower for some monetary repayment. And that has to do with the safety protocols for glide slopes and clear airspace for airplanes. That also comes into play with parcel number 1, where there's a homeowner that lives up on the ridge, and so that purple triangle is kind of a lowlands that would have a restriction on it, but it doesn't, their home's outside of the safety zone, so we don't need to go into negotiations for the full purchase. It would just have a limitation. And that's very much the same with parcel 23 on the other end of the runway. What you'll notice is that the part of the runway by the railroad tracks, that alignment is not changing. So we're not planning and we're not designing to change that end of the runway. The expansion of the runway is all on the south end, and that's why you see the property purchases there. I'd be happy to pause for any questions at this time.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Just to clarify real quick here, Eric, navigation easement, so you're, now with the exception of 1 and 19, is parcel 20 that I'm looking at here, is that one needing to be acquired then?
No, just an easement on top of it.
So what about 19 then, same thing? So 19 and 20 aren't looking to be acquired.
19 is not looking to be acquired. It's just impacted by a partial navigation easement, yeah.
And then 23 on the other end as well, but.
Correct.
Yeah, that one's not as big of a concern as these other ones were. So going over to the spreadsheet here, the numbers that we're missing, are those not included in the total at all? I assume. I didn't do the quick math on it real quick.
Correct. So if you see a cell with a question mark, those are those navigation easements. They're difficult to quantify at this time. They're not in the same magnitude of order as purchasing, but those will be kind of a strategic negotiation that has to happen with the landowner.
If I could continue, Mayors. So parcel 1, for instance, we do need to acquire the
We need to, nope, we just need the navigation easement. Parcel 1 is impacted by the navigation easement, but all we would like to do is have an agreement for the purple part.
Where are we at with some of these other ones then?
For communicating?
Yeah, purchasing, I guess, or our agreements with them. 'Cause
If you look at the offer column, you'll see that we've made offers to parcels 2 through 7 and offers 11 through 16, or 17, excuse me. So they have numbers in front of them. The ones that are yellow are the ones that have been agreed to and signed. And so we're in communications with the others, but the 6 tonight have agreed and are willing to sell at those prices.
Is there a reason 8, 9, and 10 are left out? Is it just because the corporate entity process is different than dealing with individual developers who own properties?
They are reviewing it. The 6 tonight made it very clear that they were on a timeline. If they were going to pause their development, they wanted to receive these funds and move to the next project. So the rest of the parties that we are in negotiation with are taking more time to review and decide what they want to do. So the 6 tonight have expressed us a desire to solidify this so that they can be liquid again and move to their next project.
Holly, do you have a comment on this?
No, I mean, I think that, the city's following its acquisition provisions, and so that's really where my concern ends at this stage.
Thank you.
I can talk to the way we're using our funding if that's interesting to any of the council members. At the bottom of the page I showed you, breaks down 3 sources of funding. We are currently expending the funds that we received from the governor. So we have about just at 1.4 million still. So we will be expending that through these purchases. And then in the last fiscal year, we received 200,000 through the CIP process. We'll move into that fund as soon as the state funds are expended. And then in tonight's resolution, the request is to reallocate 400,000 that was part of the CIP that was slated for water line extension along Aviation Avenue along the existing airport, but to redirect that to the purchases of these properties. And so tonight's combined request is just under 800,000, about 800,000 change with closing costs, which leaves a funding balance of about 1.2 million. And then the next column in the future council meetings takes into account those other properties that haven't finished negotiating. That's another 1.38 million. And so you see that we're forecasting these property purchases to expend all of those funds. And then our plan for future monies is to use the expected 3 million from Murkowski's office, which is still waiting for the president to sign. But we have confidence that will happen. We didn't want to count our eggs before they hatch. So you see what we have for active funding right now for that.
And the 3 million that you mentioned, would that then be used essentially to backfill the $400,000 for the water line? Or is that permissible? Or is that something that the city's gonna have to come up with?
That's an excellent question. I believe we'll have to look specifically at the wording in that funding, but my understanding is it's broadly for airport expansion. And so I believe that any of the improvements at the airport fall under that broad umbrella. We'll have to work through that with the granting agency, but I wouldn't expect a retroactive purchase process. I think that it would augment the future going forward, but whatever monies pays for the purchase is where the expenditure would lie.
Right, so in this case, we're gonna use money that we allocated through the CIP process for water line extension to the airport.
Right.
To airport properties.
Yep.
And we're gonna abandon that project temporarily until funding becomes available. And in your opinion, the grant funding, there's better than a 50% probability that the grant funding would cover that water line project. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, as I understand, we asked for that. It falls under the expansion that the initial request came through.
Okay. Any other questions?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
So I understand that we're making an offer based on the appraisal estimate. Has it been our experience we've had people deny us? Because mean, looking at where we're acquiring things, I mean, we're jumping a little bit all over the place to make sure, you know, we're looking at the ultimate plan, then we're looking at the near term.
Yes.
We're kind of bouncing a little bit all over the place. I get it that some of these were people that said, hey, you know, obviously 13 and 14 were really the only two near-term ones we're looking at acquiring right now. The rest are in the, what we consider the ultimate. Like, hey, this is, it almost sounds like it's more of a wish that, and a hope that we're going to be able to do this, not a, we're definitely going to do that. What are we looking at if people start denying us? I mean, are we just going to have to sit here and go, tell me what you want, we're going to give it to you type of thing? Because that's part of my concern here, is we're looking at a little bit of a blank check situation.
That is an excellent question. The flip side to following the FAA's acquisition process is that it lines up with an eminent domain situation. So we don't want to talk in strict language like that, but if we couldn't acquire it through a strictly mutual agreement, it would allow the council to decide to move ahead and say, this is what we're offering you. It goes through that process. So we lined it up so that we met the FAA's requirements, but in the world of aviation, it's very common that a large airport like LAX comes in and says, we're going to be fair to you. You will receive compensation to buy a new house if you live on the property, but this is the process that we're taking. So we've had a very congenial relationship with these landowners, so we haven't run into that, but there is the risk that, you know, this is the offer and that's the process through the public.
If I could continue, Mayor. Another question is Ridgeline Drive here. Looking at the ultimate plan, it looks like it's going to cut right across the road there. What's the plan on handling that situation? Are we just going to have, are there going to be two access points to Ridgeline? What does that look like for the people that might potentially live there in the future?
Sure. So access is not impacted. So the FAA is concerned about habitable structures. So driving on a road under an RPZ is not affected. What we're doing by procuring these properties is not having a house in the RPZ. And one other thing I wanted to just clarify, lots 2, 3, and 4, those are all owned by the same couple. And so to purchase, and so they made it clear to us, to purchase lot 4 and part of lot 3 means to buy everything. They're looking to relocate. And so the offer that we gave them includes relocation monies per the FAA's guidance so that they are made whole and have flexibility in finding another place to live. So that's kind of one of those examples that drew us from just the 5100 extension all the way to the ultimate, because the one landowner said it's all or nothing for me. And I guess to back up on the risk to the city, if these are real assets, so if something were to happen and only the 5100 ever became the project, these could be divested. They are, you know, they're useful and they have development, you know, abilities as it is. And so to have these now protects the ultimate build out that we're moving towards, but it's also something that can be dealt with in the future. It's not an asset that doesn't keep value.
Mr. Johnson?
Madam Mayor, in response to Ian, I think just from a strategic standpoint, if we buy lots 6 and 7, 11 through 14, lots 8, 9, and 10 really become, well, they're surrounded by the city, earmarked for a project, and anybody, any landowner who would attempt to try and build on that would be forewarned that eminent domain could easily be pulled on them. So I think by doing this, we sort of are also tying up 8, 9, and 10 as well.
Further discussion? Ms. Rubio.
Madam Mayor, so I know that Councilman, Graham had said that the water main airport, this grant that we're assuming is gonna get signed, are we for sure we can actually use that money, that 400,000 for a water line? The water main, sorry.
I see what you're saying, to repurpose it after we receive it.
Yeah, is a guarantee, like in writing, that you can use those kind of funds. It's a grant, correct? And
I'm looking to Deputy Administrator Nygaard or Finance Director Olin to see.
If I may, Madam Mayor, it's been my experience through AML, which manages a lot of grants, that unless a particular use is specifically prohibited, then the granting agency gives quite a wide leeway. So that, no, there's no guarantee, but like a finance or public works director Shaw testified earlier, there's a high probability that it would be allowable through my experience at AML.
If it's a grant for the airport, then this water line is for the airport. Because when the state gave us $5 million for the airport, we used it for,
Multiple things,
so
so
multiple things at the airport.
all towards the expansion.
yeah, can Cassie just clarify that? And
Based upon the information that I can find in regards to the FY25 discretional spending is what it's called. Currently, right now, it is appropriated by Senator Murkowski as a just runway expansion. It is very limited, it's very just broad in essence of that. Currently, with the way that we have our FAA grants and information that we receive from the gentleman there, his name's Lawson, that we deal with from the FAA. We develop our scope in regards to the runway expansion, so if that is something that we scope into the work of that grant, then that would be something that we would be able to do. But there's always a chance that it may not. Just depends on how we scope it out and how we write that scope of work and budget and that information that we need to use for it.
oh, go ahead, Ian, sorry.
You had to follow up, continue.
I do. Thank you. Through Madam Mayor. So the question then I ask is, once we get that grant or we're banking on it, then proceeding forward, are we replacing for the water main at that point? Is that the next on the agenda? Or is it looking to spend that money towards more property?
We would need to spend it on more property to begin with. In order to complete this roughly 3.5 million, that doesn't include the other question marks that are on there. That also doesn't include closing costs that are currently have no estimation, which we all know closing costs can fluctuate based upon currently what is happening. So as Eric has pointed out down here at the bottom, roughly right now we're at a $1.5 million deficit. And that's just with the appraisal part. That does not include the closing cost part of that.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
since we're talking about that 400,000, because what it sounds like to me in looking at the summary here is the plan is to take the money out and put it right back in the near future. Why even bother taking it out and putting it back? Why not just pull the $400,000 from somewhere else at that point? Since obviously it sounds like we still, I mean, it makes sense if we were saying, hey, we don't need this 400,000, we've completed said project. So we don't need this, we're gonna, like we've done in the past, we collect things, hey, this project's done here. So why bother with pulling the 400,000? Why not just take it from somewhere else?
I would say if we want to talk about need, we don't need that for the next couple fiscal years. We're going to be swamped with the expansion And so if we look at users at the airport, Silver Skies just opened their hangar. Fantastic. You should drive by, you can see in the windows and they'll give you a tour. It is full. They're actually talking to us about another hangar because they have so much business. They hook to the water, but no one else is hooked to the water. So that water line expansion is for the Burger Hill area, into the future. And we're moving priorities, basically. We need to move on that runway expansion before we get those utilities up there. So that's why I'm proposing, especially because it's just a resolution, it's airport's money that we're just moving through the airport. I don't think we need to talk about that project for several years. And I think we're gonna be well into the runway expansion construction before we need to talk about that utility. So that's why I'm proposing that it come out of the airport fund, because of the difference in years, if you will, and not going through the resolution process or the ordinance process to move general funds around. It's just reallocating that CIP, and then in a few years, we can talk about how we might go ahead and fund that with your direction.
Madam Mayor, follow up to that. Now, thank you for that. I will say, based on what your staff summary is here, what you just told me is what should have been in here.
Fair enough.
That is the type of stuff that I'm looking for to hear. You saying, hey, we're not looking at doing this project for a few years. That's why we don't need this $400,000 in here. Because again, the way this reads to me is, hey, we're gonna take this $400,000 out, and come the next few months, we're gonna be putting this money back in here, is the way this reads.
Okay.
In my eyes. So I'm always in the eyes of, I like my staff summary to be more than less at that point. I'd rather you give me over an abundance of information, because it makes it easier coming into here. Same with the lines of this right here. Like, this is something in my eyes that probably should have been given to us when this agenda came out with the rest of this stuff, because this as a whole makes understanding this entire thing easier at this point, because I mean, tell you, it was not, it's a different scope of information that we're looking at. Because when I'm running numbers, I was thinking we were gonna spend another $3.4 million is what I estimated, and I mean, I was even short by 100,000, and actually we're still short. We don't know how much more we're gonna need to spend. There's still quite a bit of acquisition here, so just a note that this is the type of stuff I like to see more of.
Absolutely. It is
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And to follow up on Ian, now, I think we have two issues here. We have these resolutions. The sum total of the resolution is just under 800,000. It has nothing to do with the 400,000 for the water main, which would be sort of the overview of the 20,000 foot level of the project. But what we need to do tonight is we have the 10,000 foot view of the 800,000 for these resolutions. Now, I think that it's very good to get the 20,000 foot level, okay, because that puts into perspective the 10,000 foot level that we're trying to do tonight. But I think we tend to be arguing about the 200,000 in the SIP, the 400,000. That's not what we're doing tonight. Tonight, we're doing the resolutions for the 800,000.
One comment on that. I do need the council to understand that as soon as we have an agreement with a property owner, they expect us to close on it. And so that has been some feedback we received from the developers, is that you're costing me money and I gotta get going. And so we wanted the council to see that we've been thinking about funding for this, so that, and I apologize to Mr. Crafton about, it's clunky to buy it, but then also give an overarching 6 at a time is unusual. Normally we just talk at 1 at a time. So I will continue to have this structure so that you can see this going forward. What I wanted the council to see is that we're preemptively figuring out how to pay for this. Cassie is very helpful in looking at our finances, as she's supposed to be, but because we cannot bring a purchase agreement forward if we're like, but we don't have any money, and they're asking us to move on this, and they need to buy a new house, and so there's a lot in play. And so I just wanted the council to have the foresight and see where we're trying to go, to be diligent, organized, and explain what we're trying to do today.
Ms. Rubio. Madam Mayor, thank you. Just to Councilman Johnson, Resolution Serial 2501 is authorizing the transfer of funds of 400,000. So we are talking about that.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Question here to Cassie. What is currently in our land acquisition account? Do we know?
There's currently roughly, at the end of FY '24, it's roughly about $855,000 currently in reserves for that.
So follow up, Mayor. Worst case scenario is what I always like to look at, because you never know. We could not get our $3 million. You know, that there is a chance that that could happen, and I'd rather look at it that way. So if we don't get it, we're still looking at needing another, we'll call it 800,000 based on this, once you factor in closing costs. Because I mean, today's bill right now is just shy of 840,000 once we factor in closing costs, and being a real estate agent, that's actually being pretty generous, 5%. So we would be looking at bringing forward another 800,000 to essentially continue padding the land acquisition account, is what you're saying. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion?
Madam Mayor? Thank you. I do stand corrected. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
Okay. I need a motion, oh,
Madam
Mr.
Mayor?
Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. While I don't fully disagree with this, I like the idea of expanding our airport. It's really good to note as well that there's a potential that we're getting $3 million, because that also does change the picture here. The one thing that I feel like and I just want to point out that I feel like we're kind of in a position is of being forced to pay these dollars for them. In all honesty, as a real estate agent, I think that the price that we're paying for these individual lots, regardless of what's on them, some of them might be high. I didn't go through all of them, but just the ones that are on here tonight, looking at it, we're paying a little bit more than what they're actually worth in on today's market. If you ask 5 appraisers, you're going to get 5 different opinions. Nobody's going to tell you the exact same thing. And I think what we're in is a position where people are going, oh wow, the city wants this to expand their airport. Man, I get to make a little bit of extra money off of this because now it's more valuable to somebody, and regardless of how we obtain it, we end up paying the price for it. That doesn't mean I object to it. I just want to point out something to keep in mind. That's kind of a position we're in, is unfortunately, that's what it's come to here. In the long term, I do think we're going to gain a lot more off of what we're paying. You could call it the premium that we're paying for this land, as well as some houses that we'll eventually obtain. So that is all, Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric and Cassie, for providing said information. I think this has been very helpful.
Okay. I need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to exit committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
The motion to exit the committee of the whole has been made by Mr. Graham and seconded by Mr. Crafton. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, we are out of committee of the whole at 7:54. And Mr. Crafton, Madam
So next would
Clerk.
be, if council's game, motion to adopt resolution serial numbers 2501, 2502, 2503, 2504, 2505, 2506, and 2507.
Okay. I need a motion.
So moved by Councilman Johnson.
Is there a second?
Second by Rubio.
The motion has been made by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt resolution 2501, 2502, 2503, 2504, 2505, 2506, 2507. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. And we are, Madam Clerk, please. We are now at communications. Madam Clerk, please read the items by title.
We have 2 sets of meeting minutes, Planning Commission minutes, November 12 and November 19, 2024.
We are now at audience comments, which is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Jeannie?
Jeannie Trushinsky, President, Friends of Wasilla Library. I live outside the city limits, but my address is Wasilla. One thing I just want to tell you really fast, Walt Disney had Disneyland and he quickly outgrew the land and then he knew he wanted to make a bigger place. So he bought all this land in Florida under these secret names, and the first land that he bought was around a few $100s an acre. And as soon as somebody figured out who was buying it, the last acres of Disney World cost in like $40,000 an acre. So I say it's real smart to buy this stuff as quick as you can because, yeah, they're gonna figure out the city wants it, buy it. Okay, 3 things from the library that I wanna tell you that I think are 3 really great celebrations. We finished our first art for seniors, and we had a reception. We had 42 people at the reception for our 13 artists, and it was just so positive. Also a little torture because they were all like, Jeannie, when are we doing the next class? I guess like, let me live through class 1 before we get to class 2, but it was really, really positive. I mean, the energy, the feedback, the evaluations were all just really, really positive. So we received notice of a grant that was available and we put in for it, and we just received word last week that we've received a grant from the Alaska Council on the Arts to offer 3 more of these classes. And so starting in April, we'll do the first class. That one will be at the library, and then the next class will be at Wasilla because it's too hard for us to use the library space during summer reading, basically. And then the 3rd class will be back at the library again. But we're really excited, and I think there's going to be some knockdown drag out of who can get to be in the class. But anyway, it is really a great project. The next thing we did was we had our Christmas tree stroll, and it was the first time that we did that. And again, the feedback was just so wonderful. Thank you, Mayor, for coming. Councilmember Velock. We had a lot of people that just came and looked at the trees and loved the trees. But then we had people in bidding wars. A husband and wife were bidding against each other on the silent auction sheet for one of the trees. I was like, stay all day, it's great for us. But anyway, we raised $1,787 for summer reading. And I already have 8 people committed to trees for next year. We did most of the trees this year. We went out to some community members, but it's kind of hard to explain our vision without having some pictures and stuff. So it was just really positive. One young couple had just moved here from Fairbanks. They still have moving boxes all over their house, but they needed a tree, and they were so thrilled because they got the tree, the decorations, the skirt, all in one thing. So it was just really great. And then our other 3rd thing that we just did was we had our monthly book sale, and we had 3 different groups that talked to us as they were checking out that they had come here from Anchorage to buy books. And one group we've seen, this is the 3rd month we've seen them, it's a group of 6 people, but they came from Anchorage to support our library. One couple told us specifically they check out books online, through the catalog from Wasilla's library so much that they feel it's important to come support Wasilla's library. And that just does my heart so much good to know that we have people literally traveling out once a month to come to our library to the book sale, and then they use the library some more while they're in there. So it's just, those are the things that really the library is all about, and it's great stuff happening. So thank you, appreciate all that you do.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, seeing no one else, we will close audience comments and bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the council, council members Cottle, Graham, and Velock are confirmed to attend the AML meeting, and Councilmember Crafton in February. So you guys all have your travel arrangements made, and I know you will represent us well. Financial disclosure statements, if you haven't turned it in yet, due by March 15th. And we will see you here January 27th, next regular meeting. Thank you.
Madam Attorney.
Oh, no comment, Madam.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. First, want to say just again, congratulations to all the Wasilla High School students. It is always good to see Wasilla stepping up and really showing off when it comes to our athletes here. Another thing was our amazing planner has already left, so I'll just say it to the mayor here. If you could just tell her thank you for what she's doing with Title 2.6 there, or Section 2.6. What she mentioned is her goal for the Planning Commission is exactly the intent of what I had pushed the change of that code for, was so that our Planning Commission can be a very proactive body and be getting things done. And I'd love to hear that she is really jumping into it here with being in such a new position. I know she was our planning clerk previously, but being able to jump into that planning position and do that. So make sure you give her a big thank you and really good job for that. Another thing to note as well is I got a call from our District 4 Assembly member. There is a few vacancies that they're looking to fill at the borough on different commissions and boards. So if you're always looking to get involved, it is a great place to start. If you can't find one here, I believe all of ours are filled right now. Isn't that correct? Yeah, so the borough is still a great way to do it. I believe one was agriculture, and I can't remember what the other one was, but I know everybody would love to learn more about agriculture. So if you want to get on a commission for agriculture. And then the last thing is just kind of stress the fact around the staff summaries here, like we received here. Sometimes I'm a little frustrated with the lack of information that we receive here, and just ask Mayor that when there's going to be this type of information that's being passed out at meetings, I would love to see this stuff earlier than when I get to this meeting, so I have a few minutes to look over this instead of jumping into a meeting and really not having the full time to digest this type of information compared to what's on our agenda. So I just asked Mayor that in the future, if your staff could get this type of stuff to us at least earlier in the day. You know, it doesn't have to be days ahead of time. I mean, as soon as possible is the best, but I would really, really love it if we could get it sooner. Other than that, we'll see you guys at the next meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was hoping today I would get this for the first time in 10 years, say no comment, but I can't. I just wanted to remind the council that the first batch of legislative pre-files has been released. Please, go to the legislature's website and take a look at those. Some of those will impact us, so we should be aware of those and just kind of go from there. And I thank the council for their indulgence on my wandering off into the borough's business tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I want to thank all the audience that came, even though they've already left. But Jackie stayed to the end. Hey, you did it. Great meeting. Just thank you, everyone. We'll see you at the next one.
Councilmember Johnson.
No comment, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Rubio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to say thank you to those coaches for, I had reached out and asked them to come, and it's amazing to see those state champions. They work so hard for that, and those were sports that were all in the fall. So now we have our winter sports coming up. So hopefully we will see more coming from Wasilla High School. So that's really exciting. Other than that, I think that's it.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to say congratulations to all of our Wasilla athletes. We are very well represented. We've got some pretty amazing youth here in Wasilla, and we can be proud of them. I also want to just express my thanks to the Friends of the Wasilla Library for all they do to support our library, to promote our library, all the many programs that you put on year-round for every age. You bring so many people into our library. I think it's pretty neat that people from Anchorage are coming out here. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Jeannie, just so you know, I have a tree for you. I don't want to decorate it or whatever, but I've got one. And whoever can decorate don't care. It's in the crawl space, so I won't deal with it till this coming year. Anyway, Wasilla High School. I'm telling you, that is the place to be. It's the athletes, but it's also the curriculum that they're teaching. I am so proud of Wasilla High School because it is amazing what they are doing over there. When you have got the number of kids that they have that have at least a 4.0, that says something. And then you've got all these other kids that are graduating with certificates and all that they can get out and go to work, you know. So you have to really be proud of Wasilla High School. It's, you know, anyway, you all know what I'm about in Wasilla, but anyway. Thank you all. It was a very good meeting. I appreciate all the input and whatever. I will, Mr. Crafton, I will direct my staff to do a better job with telling them what's what. So, anyway, looking forward to going to AML. But I'm telling you right now, don't expect anything from the state this year. Because, you know, the only hope we've got is DC. Because Lisa Murkowski is the highest ranking member on the appropriations and whatever. And we have appointments with her, with Dan Sullivan and Nick Begich. So we are trying to bring home the money again. With that, I will adjourn at 8:06.